I got to the point where I was just mentally, emotionally, physically, everything just exhausted. I just wanted it to just end. So I selfishly chose a day, a stretch of road where I would just end it all.
Today on the show, we speak to Jay Fantom, who's the founder and the host of the Storybox podcast, as well as an award-winning filmmaker, a speaker, and now a writer of his new book, The Path of an Eagle. Jay shares how he nearly lost it all, from addiction to pornography and attempted suicide, to now being able to overcome and lead after being knocked down. If you're someone who wants to learn how to overcome rejection and addiction to find your purpose in life, well, this is the conversation for you. As Jay would say, it's not about how many times you get knocked down. It's about getting back up and keep on soaring. I can't wait for you to hear this, so without further ado, let's roll the intro. Welcome to the Betar Project, the podcast helping you build mental fitness. My name is Betar, and my mission is to crush the stigma surrounding mental health. Each week, we bring you an inspiring person or message which will help you unlock your inner truth to live a life of harmony within mind, body, and spirit. Thank you for spending some time with me today. Let's dive in. Legends, quick announcement just before we jump into this podcast. The Betar Project clothing collection is dropping this Thursday, the 21st at 10 a.m. Two designs, the Crushing the Stigma design and the Betar Project podcast design. Both in tees and hoodies. Use the discount code PROJECT to receive 15% off, with $5 from every order now going towards a mental health charity such as Gotcha for Life and Mind for Oz. Limited stock, so make sure you jump on whilst it lasts. Let's dive into today's podcast. Super grateful to be back. Let's go. Jay Fantom, brother, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you so much for having me, Nick. It's great to be here.
Dude, before we jump into your story, I love to start my podcast with some gratitude. What are 3 things that you're grateful for today?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so I'm grateful for the fact that I'm alive. I'm grateful for the fact of my brain being able to work. And I'm grateful for the fact that I get to speak to you today.
Appreciate it, bro. You mentioned rejection, resilience, and we'll dive into your story a bit more, but through the trials and tribulations that you've been through, what does resilience mean to you?
Resilience to me is sort of like, I often equate it to that inner strength, that inner ability to just push forward no matter what happens, no matter how hard life gets, no matter how many times you are beaten down. And that does actually happen. You just keep getting back up. And resilience is like that muscle inside that you work on based on the experiences that you end up being surrounded with. And you can choose whether or not you want to build that resilience muscle or you want to crumble. And it is that choice that I make every single day to get up, to do the things that I do, no matter how hard they actually are, because I love what I do first and foremost. And secondly, I'm excited to see what's next. Like if I can overcome this challenge before me, then number one, I'm growing. And number two, I'm also learning as a result. Like I'm becoming a better human being by going through and picking myself back up and moving forward. So resilience to me is that personal innate desire to not give up, to just move on forward and make that choice to move forward every single day, because giving up is easy. And I don't want things to be easy, man. I want things to be difficult. I want things to be hard. And why I want that is because I don't want to be stuck. I don't want to get stuck in life and remain there, because that's where a lot of people are, unfortunately. They get through something that is difficult and tough and they stay stuck because they feel comfortable in that period of stuckness. And they have no way, they have no other direction of how to get out of this. But for me, I look at it as if I can just get up, take one step forward into the unknown, and then another step, and then another step, I'm going to get closer and closer to the light anyway. But I've made that choice to take that step, which has come from like a lot of experience being hurt and being beaten down as a young guy. And even now, I still get beaten down, man. Like it doesn't stop. But my resilience to and my appreciation to it just grows even more. So that's what resilience means to me, man, if that made sense.
Yeah, it does, man. And resilience can be built in so many ways. And it doesn't have to be just overcoming that massive obstacle, that massive adversity in your life. It could be, I think I heard you say, beating the sun every morning.
Yeah.
That's a point of resilience because you want to hit that snooze alarm. You want to sleep in, but getting up and beating the sun, well, that builds your resilience. And if you can overcome that, you can overcome most things. And for me, it's cold showers. It's
Mm.
winter right now. It's cold. I live in the mountains. It's freezing, but I'm having cold showers because if I know if I can do that, if I can have a 1 to 2 minute cold shower, well, then I can overcome most things throughout my day.
Yeah. It's that little bit by little bit, you're building strength by strength, right? Like it's always those little things that compound later on, I've noticed. With me getting up and beating the sun, that was a choice that I made because of some stupid things that I did before in my life that led me to that point. And by me saying, hey, you know what? If I can beat the sun, then no matter what comes my way during that day, I can beat that too. I've created that that mental resilience for myself because the hardest part is taking that step into the unknown. The hardest part is actually, yeah, like I said, that first step. But if you can make that first step, then you can make another one and just keep on going. And you never know what's going to happen. And that excites me, man. The not knowing part, it scares me half to death, but it also excites me at the same time because even if it's good and even if it's bad, it's going to be okay anyway. And that's the way I look at my life. And the beating the sun principle as well for me is like it's part of what I do in my life. It's not based around who I am as a person. Who I am as a person is based around my character, my integrity, all those things, which then helps me inform the way I choose to live my life. So if I want to get up every single morning at 4 in the morning, that's my choice to move, like to fix on all the traumas and all the pains in my past that like I chose to go down a vast majority of those paths. And I've just got to learn to build those areas in my life that combat the negative, if that makes sense at all.
No, it makes sense. Like everything in life is a choice. And the biggest thing I learned from, I guess, that I had on Kevin Hines was everything's a choice. Suffering is optional.
Yeah.
You can choose to take action on your life, or you can sit there and feel bad for yourself and go, oh, poor me, why me? Play victim and suffer throughout your whole life because of something that happened when you were younger. Or you can make the choice, be like, hey, this happened for a reason. I'm going to accept it for what it is and appreciate the lessons and the growth that I had off the back of that and truly become who I want to be and live my inner truth. This story of two brothers that grow up. They have a abusive domestic upbringing. One goes on to use that as motivation to become a better version and not want anything to do with that. The other one blames their upbringing and ends up in jail. Like we all have a choice in life.
The suffering aspect I learned from Andrew Scipione, the former New South Wales police commissioner. He had faced like enormous atrocities, man. Like he had seen the worst of humankind, no doubt. And he said to me this, and he's like, we all go through those heartaches. We all go through those moments of pain, and we can choose to stay in that period of suffering because everyone goes through periods of suffering. But we can either choose to stay in that period of suffering or we can get out of it. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So if I can look at that with my own life, and if we're going and tying it back into resilience, if you want to be more resilient, then make the choice not to suffer for a long period of time. Make the choice to go through the pain, feel the pain when you need to feel it, build what you need to build on because it's going to happen, and then move forward. But move forward with grace in yourself and with kindness, and knowing that this period of suffering is only for such a time as this, not for a long period of time. But it can be a lot longer if you choose it to be that way.
Mm. And I think the first step is acknowledging there is something there. There is a trauma. There's a system called the AAA system. So it's acknowledge, accept, and appreciate.
Yep.
We got to acknowledge it, we got to accept it for what it is, and then we got to learn to appreciate the lessons, the growth, what I mentioned before. Because if we don't learn to appreciate it, that's when we get stuck in the suffering mode of, hey, like this happened to me instead of this happened for me.
Yeah. I like saying, yes, this actually happened to me, but it's also happened for me as well.
Mm.
So the idea of that is what a lot of people say is, yeah, yeah, it's happened for me. Like that's the perspective shift, but it's also happened to you for a specific reason so that you can become better. And I don't believe for 1 second that we were made to stay stuck, to stay stagnant. I believe that we were created to move forward. And the unfortunate part is that when we do go through those periods of pain and suffering and those difficult moments, it is so easy for us to give up. And I think the ones that really, really make a difference in their own life and other people's lives is the ones that build on that resilience, the ones that actually decide to move forward no matter what. And that's what I've decided to do. And I hope that people can look at my life or even look at your life, Nick, and say, you know what? I shouldn't remain stuck. If Jay and Nick can do it, then what's stopping me? And the one thing that I love as well about stories is that we can all relate, we can all connect to some sort of level with someone's pain. That's what brings the connection too, is that vulnerable state that we can get in. Is you've been through this, I've been through that, I can relate to you. And you know what? Here's what I learned as a result of going through that. So let's help each other out here. Let's do it and see where we can go, because the world has already got so many people that are stuck right now in periods of suffering. They're blaming their situation, they're blaming others, they're not taking responsibility for anything, but it's their choice. It's no one else's choice, it's their own. They're remaining stuck in, oh, it's happened to me. You know what? It's also, forget about that. Just take responsibility for your own actions. I know it's easier said than done. It takes time, but you're going to be so much better for it, man, if you make the choice to get back up and to keep moving forward.
Yeah, that's a big thing I push is take ownership of your life. Yes, it's uncomfortable to have that reflection and look yourself in the mirror and be like, hey, like this happened to me, but how can I move past it?
Yeah.
It's so hard to do, but it's so necessary that you do that. If not, you're never going to move forward. You're going to be stuck, as you said, and you're going to be suffering in quotations because you choose to suffer.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And you mentioned, being beaten down in your early days and storytelling. And dude, let's go back a bit. What was your upbringing like?
Upbringing was, I was blessed to have two loving parents that worked their absolute butts off for myself and my two brothers. We grew up in, I guess you could call it a low middle class sort of family. So, things were really, really tricky and difficult growing up. My dad had to work, say, 2, 3 jobs at times just to put food on the table. So it was a little bit of struggle, and I did see that growing up. But like I said, I never went without what I needed, and that was the important thing. And I'm so grateful for my parents, the way they brought me up, loving Christian household. Sure, some things could be perceived as being a bit controlling, and I wasn't allowed to do certain things, but I don't take that as a negative thing at all. I didn't miss out on anything, and sure, I may have been shielded away from a lot of things, but when I got older, I'm just like, you know what? That's not going to change how I see the world these days. Like, it's not like the veil has been removed from my eyes and, oh crap, what do I do now? So to speak. Like, I understood the reality of the world. Like, I was not naive to that. I understood that the world does have its atrocities and there's a lot of negative out there. I was a very observant and curious minded kid as well. So that meant that I would ask questions, and my grandfather used to tell me as well. We used to have conversations in the car on my way to art classes about life. And I'll forever remember those conversations and cherish those memories with him. But yeah, in saying that, being a very curious minded kid, And it also meant that I I also struggled in school because my curiosity would run wild and I wasn't exactly focused. My brain didn't really develop too well regarding math, science, any subject really, except for the creative writing part of English. And it meant that I could let my mind wander and just have a go. But it also meant because I was different, I would be bullied. I'd be made fun of the way I looked, the way I acted in class, what I said most of the time. I used to hate going to school because of that very thing. Being bullied is not fun at all. There was a guy that sort of had it out for me and he caused like physical pain to me. And it's something that I live with to this very day that if I don't strengthen that area, then that weakness can spring up and cause me pain that I don't want to happen. So I've just got to be very, very mindful and careful of that. But I don't hate him or resent him for doing any of that. I mean, we were kids, we're young people. He just saw a young person that was different. He didn't understand my difference, and he was just a kid that was probably in a lot of pain himself, I think, and was just taking it out. And he took it out on me, unfortunately.
I want to touch on how do you respond to violence and bullying now after being through it growing up? Like, what's your perspective on it?
Look, bullying and violence is never right. Like violence begets more violence. Like
Mm.
that's the way I see it. Violence never solved anything. The only thing that really combats violence and bullying, this is what I believe, is turning the other cheek, as Christ did so often. And he had to. I mean, if you look at his example, he was bullied more than I was. He was ridiculed. He was put on a cross for goodness sake. But he didn't fight back. He willingly did it. Why? To show us the ultimate example is love, because love truly conquers all. And sure, love is really, really hard, man. Don't get me wrong. Like to love someone else that hates you and you know they hate you and they know they've inflicted pain in your life and they know they're violent, loving someone like that is no easy thing to do. But if you can get to the place where you can embrace them in the loving way that often Christ talks about, like love thy neighbor as thyself. We love ourselves a certain way. That's if you love yourself, that is. So if I love myself in a good way, in the right way, unconditionally, and you got agape love and all those other versions of love. I know love is a very diverse topic. We can spend an hour just talking about love. And I'm sure you would know this, man. You got your own kid.
Mm.
So that version of love is another example of it. So you would give up your own life for your kid, right?
Yeah.
See, that's sacrificial love. So what I think I've looked at bullying and violence now is the world just needs to get off their own proud high horse for just a moment, sit down and try the very best they possibly can to understand, but understand with love. And I know there's so many like diverse opinions and things that are out there that we don't agree with. That's okay. Find common ground. If you don't find common ground, then you're going to continue building this divide in society. You're going to continue the bullying, the violence, and a lot of people that are bullying others. They've also got pain inside them. They're lashing out. Hurt people hurt people. You know why they say that? You know why it's considered a cliche? Because it's true. It so often happens that the one that is bullying another person, they've got their own trauma that they haven't dealt with. So, what I would say to people is if you need help, if you are struggling at all, don't be afraid to reach out. It's the same thing with mental health because a bully is struggling with their mental health in a major way, and you don't understand how they're struggling. I know I wasn't a bully growing up, but I bullied myself. I abused myself, and I'm sure we'll get into that later on. I was violent to myself because I made that choice based on my experiences. It's a whole nother area. But what I'm trying to say is never be afraid, no matter what you're going through, because we're all going through something. That's the human condition. Never be afraid to reach out to someone, anyone. Doesn't matter who it is. Don't be afraid to do it. So that's how I look at bullying and violence today. How do you look at it, man?
Empathy, bro. Empathy is a big part of how I respond to everything now. And
Mm.
there's also this saying, like we were speaking about love, anger knocked on the door, love answered, anger wasn't there anymore. I
I
love
love
that
that.
saying, bro. But in terms of empathy and bullying and violence, so many times we're looking at the external. Oh, they're a bully. They're such a bad person. Instead of having empathy and trying to understand why. Why is that person bullying? Getting to the root cause of it instead of just labeling them as a negative thing.
Mm,
Because when we start doing that, we're going to have a better understanding. And then we can actually help that person. Because the more we label them, the more negative energy we put towards them, what are they going to project back out? More and more negative energy.
yeah.
And it comes with mental health. Someone might be struggling with depression or anxiety. What do? We mask that. Drugs, alcohol, all that kind of stuff. Instead of having empathy and getting to the root cause of the issue, why is depression arising in my life? Why is anxiety arising in my life? Why? But we don't ask those questions
No.
because we're looking for the easy fix. And that's sadly the society we live in now is we're always looking for the quick fix instead of getting to the root cause. Same with health and fitness. Someone wants to lose weight, they'll go get the surgery to lose all their fat, or these lose fat pills and all this kind
Mm,
of crap, instead of actually fixing their diet and putting in the hard work. But why did you get that weight in the first place? Because
mm,
there was probably a root cause in there that made you go, all right, I'm not feeling well. I'm going to continue eating and eating and eating and not exercising. I don't have self worth. I don't have self confidence. I have no purpose in my life. But we're not analyzing any of this. So I think empathy is number one. We need to respond to every single situation with empathy.
yeah. Empathy, being kind to someone. But in going off what you said as well, see, a lot of people are looking for that shortcut,
Mm,
but the reason why they're looking for that shortcut is because they feel like it's going to be less pain.
yeah.
And it's painful to face up to reality. It's difficult because I had to do it. When I was dealing with depression, I didn't want to face up to the own reality, my own existence. All I did was blame someone else. This person put me through this. It's their fault. Going back again to what we're talking about personal responsibility. Nobody wants to ask themselves those tough questions. And I know this to be true because that was me. I avoided those difficult questions like the plague because it showed forth who I really was. And I didn't like it. It challenged me and I didn't like it. So I ran from it. I'm like, give me something that numbs this pain. Give me something that takes me away from it because I don't want this pain anymore. I didn't want the pain anymore, but I wasn't willing to do what was necessary. And in order to do what is necessary to get through the pain, you've got to go through pain.
Mm,
But not a lot of people understand that because they're afraid of it. They want the easy way out. I say this analogy in my book. Two people are about to climb a mountain. Both people have got two different mindsets. The one has a mindset of growth. He likes pain. He likes difficulties because he knows at the end of that, once he gets through it, and he will get through it, there is growth, there is learning, and he's now figured things out about himself that he didn't know before. The second person, however, does not have a mindset of growth. He's looking always for the easy way because the easy way is simple. He doesn't want to do a lot of work. He hates a lot of work. He's lazy. So there are two paths to the top of this mountain. The first path is the most difficult, it's the most challenging, and it inflicts the most amount of pain. The second path is a direct route straight to the top. There's not much effort whatsoever. In fact, you could climb up there 3 times if you wanted to and still beat the first person trying to climb on the first path. So the first person walks to the base of the mountain. He looks at the second path first and then the first path. Which one do you think he took? He took the first path, the most difficult one, because the first person has the mindset of growth. So he got excited when he saw the difficult obstacles, sharp sticks, and everything along the path. He decided to take the first path. He begins his journey. The second person, however, reaches the base of the mountain. He looks at the first path straight away and sees the person that he's climbing and notices how much pain he's in. The second guy gets scared. He doesn't want that. So he looks at the second path straight away. Second path is easy. So you know what? I'll take the second path. And so he begins his journey. The moment he gets to the top of the mountain, he reaches the top and thinks for a moment, that was easy, but there was no change. Let me do it again. Let me see if I can do it again and see if I can feel anything different. So he does it again for a second time. Gets to the top for a second time. There was no exertion. It was just straight right up to the top of this mountain. No pain whatsoever. Reaches the top and he still feels empty. Why? Because there's no struggle. So he goes, okay, let me do it for a third time. And maybe for a third time, it might be different. So he gets to the top for a third time and he feels no different than when he had just climbed up because it was easy. There was no challenge in front of him. He liked the easy way. And so he got the easy way, but there was no growth. There was no fulfillment, zero satisfaction as well. And that's not what life is about. So the second person goes, you know what? I'm going to wait till the first person gets to the top of this mountain and I'm going to ask him why he decided to choose the most difficult path. Because maybe if I can learn something from him, then maybe I might actually take something away. Maybe I might actually figure out why I'm not feeling happy or fulfilled at all. So when the first person gets to the top of the mountain, hours later, the second person is still waiting for him and he asks, why did you take the first path? The first person then looks at the second person and goes, look at what I just climbed. Look at how hard it was. But I didn't give up. I kept on going. I didn't stop when it got hard. I may be bruised, battered, and bleeding, but I didn't give up when it got tough. I kept on going. I kept moving forward. And now look at me. I'm on the top of the mountain. And I'm happy. I'm fulfilled. I learned that my life is far better when I take those difficult moments, those difficult paths, because I've built that resilience. I've built that perseverance. I've built that persistence. I built all those key elements that I need in my life in order to push forward, in order to get to the best places in my life. And now I've got one incredible story, the story of overcoming. Whereas for the second person, he realized I don't have a story of overcoming. My story is just me climbing straight to the top. There was no obstacle at all. I mean, what kind of a story is that? It's still a story, but where's the fulfillment? Where's the lessons? The only lesson you can really learn is the second path isn't the right path. So that's my analogy, man, of how we should really be looking at our life. Are we going to take the easy way out every single time and get nothing really from it? Or are we going to take the first path, build that mindset of growth, learn to overcome the challenges, and become the very, very, very best version that we're meant to become? I want to be that person. What about you?
Same here, bro. I can relate to that so much because a story that pops into my head is when I ran my first marathon. And the most I ever ran was 7Ks. And I didn't really train much. And my mate's like, let's go do a marathon. And we did it. We just did it on our own. It wasn't like an event or anything. We did it at 10 o'clock at night on a 1 kilometer loop. And we had to run past our cars every single time. Now, I could have hopped in my car and gone home after 5Ks, after 20Ks, after 30Ks, but I didn't. I kept pushing myself. At some points, I was hallucinating, had the runner's high, but I pushed through it. And once I finished that, the amount of fulfillment and the accomplishment that I gained from that by pushing myself. Yes, I was sore. Yes, I was in pain, but I felt on such a high because I know that from the beginning of the night, the max I ever ran was 7Ks and I never pushed myself that far. The end of the night, 42 kilometers, and I pushed myself so bloody out of my comfort zone. I was like, wow, if I can do this, what else can I do? And next weekend, for example, I'm running in a 25-kilometer race at Port Macquarie, a
Oh,
1,000-meter elevation in the
goodness
mountains.
me.
Yeah. Now, that is going to be a crazy experience, and I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of self-reflection, a lot of growth, a lot of lessons from that as well. But it's just about pushing yourself, and it doesn't have to be the extremes of running a marathon and all that kind of stuff. It could be simple things. Just get out of your comfort zone every single day. As I mentioned earlier, it could be a cold shower. That could be so out of your comfort zone, but
Yep.
just by doing even 30 seconds can help you grow. But just push yourself every single day. Learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Appreciate the uncomfortable.
Mm.
Because it's going to happen regardless. No matter how much you run from it, you're going to be uncomfortable with you staying in the misery of trying to run away from it. It's gonna come back, man. It's this journey of life, the circle of life, as the Lion King often reflects to, right? Like it is that cycle. You consistently go through it, and those mountains as well. They can be small ones, but even if you do take the most difficult path for those small mountains, you're still going to be better for it anyway. Doesn't have to be a giant mountain. I mean, I'm facing a couple of giant mountains at the moment, but I'm enjoying it. It sucks, but I'm enjoying it nonetheless because it is just so, like you said, it's kind of like that runner's high as well in that moment. Even though I'm not technically running, I'm walking through it, but I'm learning so much about myself, about life, and about the process of what this thing I'm going through.
How do we get more people to take that path of adversity and overcoming the obstacles instead of just going for the easy path and staying in your comfort zone?
Well, I ran away from it for many, many years. And look, I can't tell anyone to do anything. It's not my prerogative at all. But I can influence you. I can show you this is my life. And when people see that, hopefully they get inspired in some way, shape, or form to do the same for their own life. Because if they want the very best life possible, then if they want to soar in life, then you won't stay on the ground when you get knocked down. You get back up. And I think there's a major, major theme in this show is the fact that we have that choice. We have that free will and that ability to make that choice for ourselves. And I can't make it for you. I wish I could. You know what, man? I wish I could take the pain away from a lot of people that are suffering, that are going through worst things that I've ever been through. I wish I could do that. But the only thing I can do is show my support, show the empathy, try to understand what they're going through, and say, here's another way. Here's what I call the path of an eagle. Here's what I'm on. Do you want to join me or not? Because if you do want to join me, then you're in a much more powerful position. One's great, two's better than one. When you have that iron sharpens iron aspect to your life, you're in a position of tremendous power, man. You can go a lot further than what you thought you could. So I guess if you do want to live a more fulfilled life, a life of joy, a life that is abundant, then I encourage you, be on my path or go on the path of an eagle. And it may beat you down a couple of times, but that's all right. Just keep getting back up and keep on soaring. That's the way I look at it, man. Hopefully people listening or watching this can feel something in some way, and maybe they can change their life for the better.
Mm. People underestimate how much they can actually achieve. We always knock ourselves down.
Yeah.
We have so much negative energy and so much negative thoughts, but you're never going to know until you put yourself out there. And a big thing for me is not having regret. I do not want to get to 80, 90, 100 if I live that long and look back on my life with regret that I didn't do certain things or I wasn't the person that I wanted to be. That is probably one of my biggest fears is regret. I do not want regret, and which is why I do the stuff that I do. I take every opportunity that comes my way because I know it's going to help me grow, even if it is scary at the time, even if it is, starting a business or going on a health journey or whatever the case may be. Having that uncomfortable conversation with yourself, self-reflection, as we've been talking about, that's scary. But if you do not have it, the truth is you're going to get to the end of your life and you're going to have regret.
Mm.
So many people do. I think there was a study done on it. They interviewed so many people on their deathbeds or 80, 90 years old, and they all had regret of the things that they didn't do with their lives for so many various reasons. One being fear of judgment or doing things because their parents wanted them to, living their life for other people instead of living life for themselves and living their inner truth, which is a big point of my podcast now, is helping people to unlock their inner truth.
Yeah.
Because it's going to make people so much more happier, so much more fulfilled, purposeful, self-worth, all those kind of things that come along with that. That is my purpose. That is my mission.
It's a good
But
purpose and a good
it all
mission.
starts from me doing it myself.
Yeah.
Because it's all good for me to say it, but if I'm not practicing it, if I'm not doing it myself, and don't get me wrong, I'm still on the journey of that. I'm still every day working on that. But if people can see what we're doing, see what we're talking about today, and see that we're actually putting in the work. We're average people. We're no one special. So if we can do it, why can't you?
Exactly. And that's the point of connection. That's the point of understanding. If they can see that we're working hard on ourselves and our ability to overcome these things every single damn day, because it doesn't stop. That's what I do every single day. That's why I wake up the time I wake up. Like I said, the beating the sun principle. I do that because number one, I want to do it. But number two, I hope that other people see it, that it is making a difference in my life. And when they see it, that it's making a difference in my life, then maybe they might start thinking, how can it make a difference in my life too? And like you said, we're both not special. We're both 25. We're both still young. Both still got a lot of growing to do. But I think that's exciting. I haven't figured it all out. I don't think I ever will. I mean, saying that you figured it all out, I mean, number one, that's pride. And number two, the moment I have done that in the past, that I know it all, I've been beaten down like a stick. Because one thing that I've realized that in failure, you learn one of life's most greatest lessons, and that is humility. We all need to just, like I said, get off our high horses, remove the ego, because the ego can blind us to important truths, the truths about ourselves. We've all got an ego, man. We've all got to get rid of it. We've all got to subdue it from time to time because it does rear its ugly head. But also, I want people to understand that you are your own leader. You can choose to lead your life in the very best way possible, or you can choose to do the complete opposite. I mean, if you look at the way I'm leading my life at the moment and the way Nick's leading his life, and you get inspired by how we're leading it, you can do the exact same thing. The option and the choice is always available to you. You just got to make it. Sure, you got to make some lifestyle changes, but like I said, you got to go through those moments of pain in order to get to the other side. And you will get to the other side. You're going to be better for it. And then you're going to become a better leader within yourself. And so by doing that, you can now lead others in a good way as well. We've already got enough negative leaders out there, man. Why add more?
Exactly. We should all be striving to become the best versions of ourselves, but also understanding you're never going to be the best version because that means perfection, and there's no such thing as perfection.
No.
It's a never-ending game of striving to be the best, which is awesome. And I love that journey, and I'm excited that I finally switched my perspective and realized that, hey, this is what I need to do. And I've grown so much because there's only so much you can numb and push down your feelings and emotions, coming back to mental health, until it gets to the point of I can't numb it no more,
Mm.
which is why people go to the point of sadly taking their own life. Hey legends, just wanted to take a break to talk about today's sponsor of the podcast, which is Savvy Beverages. Now, Savvy is a 100% all natural brain boost nootropic drink designed to improve your mind, reduce stress, and lift your mental fog without all the BS. With over 15 active ingredients, including L-theanine, green bean coffee extract, and even creatine monohydrate, essentially it's like taking a handful of multivitamins, amino acids, super greens, all that stuff all in one. The bonus is 0 sugar and only 6 calories. My favorite flavor is the summer fruits flavor, and honestly, I drink it basically every single podcast. It just keeps me focused, keeps me in the zone, and plus it tastes great. Like, I was skeptical when I first got it, but this is a one energy drink that I actually drink. And they also have a lemon lime flavor as well as their mental performance coffee. Now, don't trust my word for it. Go give it a go for yourself. Honestly, if you do not like it, there's a full money back guarantee. Head over to www.savvybeverage.com.au. Use the discount code BETAR25, that is BETAR 25, to receive 25% off. I know you've had an experience with suicide, attempting to take your own life. What was your experience like with that, and what was the point that led you to that?
So I got to the lowest possible point, and ultimately it was a selfish act that I did because I just wanted it. I wanted to be out of pain. And who doesn't want to be out of pain? But it's the wrong way to go about it. I didn't realize that it was the wrong way to go about it. But everything just compounded on itself, man. It was those little things and some big things as well that just compounded on my life. So losing my dog of 11 years, we're really, really close with. And whenever you go through loss and you need time to grieve, I didn't really have that much time to grieve and the way I wanted to grieve. And then the girl that I was dating at the time, who I put my entire worth, my entire purpose and identity into, decided to end the relationship. So when the relationship ended, I crumbled. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know what I wanted anymore. And I was just going through life aimlessly. And at the same time, this is all happening, I was in real estate and I was sinking really, really quickly. I was thrown in the deep end. I had no idea what I was doing. And it was like that sink or swim moment. Everyone wants to swim straight away. That's not going to happen. You're going to sink. And sinking is a great thing because it builds that strength within you. You will swim from time to time. That's okay too. But I was sinking and for a long time too. I was being abused in my job and I wasn't really happy at all. And so in June of 2019, I decided, like, I got to the point where I was just mentally, emotionally, physically, everything just exhausted. I just wanted to just end. So I selfishly chose a day, a stretch of road where I would just end it all. And I get to that day in my car. I'm like, okay, it's it. So I'm driving 130, 140 kilometers an hour towards this pole at the end of stretch of road. I'm in the far right hand lane. There's no one really on the road with me. I take my hands off the wheel and I'm watching the steering wheel veer towards the pole. And I'm like, all right, I'm ready. But didn't hit. There was no impact. And I watched the steering wheel go from the left hand side back onto the right hand side of the road. I didn't even feel my foot come off the accelerator onto the brake, and my car came to a complete stop, not too far away from the pole. And in that moment, man, I just broke down. I cried. I was and trying to figure out the reality of what you were just about to do. Like, my life could have been over, and life is the most precious thing on the face of the earth. No doubt about it. And I was just about to end my precious life because I chose to believe that my life wasn't worth it anymore. And a lot of people don't believe their life or their story has any merit or value because of the pain, because of the suffering, and they allow those circumstances to build up and build up. They don't deal with it. They just pile it down, which is what I did, and eventually it crumbles. And it did for me. And I hope that people listening to this don't get to that point. And if you have been suicidal, if you even attempted to take your own life, I'm truly, truly sorry, because I've been there. I know what it's like. It's horrible, but there is a way out. And I'm so, so thankful and so grateful that God, it was literally a God moment, man. If people don't believe in God, that's totally fine. But I believe in him. And that day just proved even more that he is real and he does care for me. And I totally believe without a shadow of a doubt that he saved me from that. He saved me from myself, first and foremost. And he put me on the right path, the path that I call the path of an eagle. And he showed me, he's like, I have better things in store for you. I'm not going to show you right now, but I need you to trust me. That's a hard thing for you to do, but I need you to do it. Because in 2018, I went through meningitis. Could have lost my life then too. I had to trust in someone I could not see because I was blind at the time. I had to trust a doctor who only did a lumbar puncture once to do it for me. And there's a 50% chance of it being successful or not. So those odds, I'm not good at math, but I don't like those odds. Because in my experience being a phantom, we don't do things the normal way. So my mind was scared and afraid that I would be in the 50% that didn't make it. So I wrestled and I fought with trusting God to take care of me. And the final thing that voice said to me was, "Do you trust me?" And then it left. And obviously I had to trust him in that moment, and I'm glad that I did because it all ended up working out. And it was the same deal for this, for my life moving forward. Did I trust God to look after me moving forward in my career? And so not long after that, a couple of months later, I ended up leaving real estate and ended up working for disabled people, funny enough, and started the Storybox podcast in November of 2015. Coincidentally, on the same date that my grandfather passed away, the 15th of November. So it has a lot of significance to me. And also when I attempted to end my own life, not long after that, I ended up going to where my grandparents are buried and just being in their presence for a while and just bawling my eyes out, and just trying to figure out where I was, why I was there in the first place, why I just attempted to end my life moments earlier. Because sure, I wanted to meet my grandparents, but not then. Like, imagine if I got to heaven and I saw my grandfather and my grandmother and they go, "Why are you here? You shouldn't be here yet." And imagine if I told them I felt like my story didn't matter. So I ended my own life. Imagine the reaction on their face. I think it'd be this utter disbelief first and foremost, but this also ashamed. Like, why did you do that? You're so much more than that. So I'm so glad that I was spared from doing that, and yeah, chose to trust God moving forward, and He's looked after me ever since, man. And I say that I owe God everything, and He owes me nothing, and yet He still continues to give and give. and give. And I'm living proof of that, man. So for as long as I live, however long that is, I'll continue to share my story the best way I can. And hopefully people listening to this are helped by it in some way, shape, or form.
Jay, first of all, man to man, thank you so much for being vulnerable. I know as a man, it can be hard to express our feelings and open up about certain situations. So, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that because I know a lot of people are going to be able to relate to that and get a lot out of that. And it's the sad reality of depression and like mental health issues, mental illness, that it gets to the point of the only way a person feels that they can get rid of the pain is to end their life. And you mentioned suicide as being selfish, which is a sticky subject in itself. I want to ask you, what is your take on that and why do you believe suicide is selfish?
You're only taking into account your own actions in that moment. You're not taking into account how it's going to affect other people. Everything that you do in this life will affect other people. I know that's another sticky subject and how we live our life. We are an example, but I can only imagine how my family would have felt knowing that I had ended my life. Imagine someone asking, "What happened to Jay?" And they have to explain, "He killed himself." Imagine their horror, their reaction towards that. And that's why I believe it's ultimately a selfish act, because you may be out of pain, but you've left pain for others. What kind of a person does that? I and I didn't care either. I wasn't thinking about them. I was only thinking about myself and my pain and getting out of my pain. Nobody else. And when I finally realized the reality, the sheer reality of not just trying to end your own life, but the reality of how it affects other people, you speak to people that their son or their daughter or someone they know has ended their own life and the reasons why they've ended their own life, you speak to how it's affected them. There's a ripple effect. And unfortunately, it's not a good ripple effect. So that's why I believe it, man.
Yeah, it's so true what you say. Like it doesn't remove the pain, it just transfers it to other people. And I read a study where it said on average 180 people are affected just by one suicide.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. By you taking your own life, and I respond to it with empathy because when someone's in that mindset, they're not really thinking of everything else. They're just
No.
like, I'm in pain, I need to end this pain. So I have empathy towards that. But the act of suicide, to a degree, yes, is selfish because, yes, you may end your life, but if it affects 180 people, that is crazy. The impact that it has just by ending your life. When what we've been talking about today is have that uncomfortable conversation.
Mm.
Talk to someone. There's always someone there that you can speak to, whether that be a friend, a family, professional help. There's someone that you can reach out to, you can talk to, and you can overcome this. Get to the root cause of it. And if needed, yes, you may need medication for a time being. There's a time and place for everything. But we need to start getting to the root cause of it so we don't get to the point of the only way to end this pain is to end my life.
Yeah. It may be the final resort for you, but it's not the final resort for your family. They love you. They want to help you. And I know that sometimes family and friends, they can go a bit too far with these things, but that doesn't mean, and it should never mean, that it ends up you taking your own life. And you say, "Jay, you don't know what I've been through. You don't know what I've done. You don't know any of these things. But all I know is that your life is worth it. Your life is valuable. Doesn't matter what you think right now. Your life is worth it. You should know it. Doesn't matter what I think. You should know it. That's the most important thing. I can say it until I'm blue in the face, but you've got to know it. Because if you don't know it, God help you." And see what's happened for a lot of people. The reason why we go through all these terrible things is because a lot of people don't know that their life has meaning, their life has purpose, their life has value. It does. You being alive right now is a purpose. Because if you understand how precious and how valuable life really is and what it takes to have a life in the first place, if you take that life away because you don't want your own life, that's selfish. Because imagine the kind of life you could have if you chose not to end your life. Imagine the kind of life you could have if you felt that your story mattered, if you felt that you were worth it. Imagine all those things. Sure, you've got to go through a little bit more pain, but imagine your life if you knew that it was worth something, is all I'm saying. Just ask yourself that question because you never, you never know where your life is going to take you half the time. I didn't know that I would be here today speaking with Nick, but all I did was trust and take that first step and then another step and another one and another one. And I keep taking those steps every single day. I don't stop. So, in other words, don't give up. Don't ever give up, no matter what.
Exactly. And you may be going through a shit period in your life, a shit season, but that doesn't mean the rest of your life's going to be like that. It's just a season. And I wanted to ask you, what's your relationship with your mental health now?
It's a lot. It's a daily process, man. Like I have bad days like everyone, but I'm also mindful that, if I want to stay in the darkness, I'll stay in the darkness. And sometimes, like I said, you need to feel your way through. You need to feel your emotions, but that doesn't mean that I'm depressed if I have a bad day. If I have a series of bad days, if I have a series of horrible negative events, then I'll reflect and I'll start evaluating things. But I've got tools and strategies these days in place so that I don't remain in the dark for a long period of time. I get myself out of it. And whether it's exercise, writing things down, eating healthy, because there's a lot of science and research backing what we eat affects how we feel in our emotions. And I'm also careful with who I interact with because those people also affect our mood, and they can be the difference maker between whether or not they build you up or they tear you down. And so I want people in my life that will build me up as well. Like I would do the same for them. Uh, so my mental health these days is a lot better than what it was, and I'm thankful that it is because I have those incredible people around me, loving family, good friends, and also I've chosen to put in those strategies and actions in place to persistently go after not staying in the dark, putting myself in the light for however long that I want. So thanks for asking me that, man. How's your mental health?
It's good, bro. As everyone's up and down. But for me, it's just about working on it every single day and ensuring that I have my daily habits that I do, that meditation, breath work, cold showers, all these things that I do every single day that allow me to build that mental fitness and really work on having that healthy level of mental health. And you can tell the difference when you don't do it for a few days or even a week. Because what starts to arise in your life, anxiety, stress, all these kind of, stuff that comes into your life because you're not doing the things that make you feel good. So at the moment, I would say, if I was to do on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm sitting around an 8. I wanted to jump into addiction. Now, for you, you were addicted to pornography.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of your main addictions. How did that all come about? Because I know there's a backstory in regards to sexual abuse and stuff that I want to kind of intertwine. Because I've got a question for you in regards to when someone has experienced sexual abuse, they can usually go one or two ways. They can be totally sexually shut off, or they can go, I'm all for sexual activity and I want sex, pornography, all that kind of stuff. So for you, I want to talk about your addiction, pornography, and do you feel being sexually abused when you were younger led to that, or do you feel that's just a society issue, especially with young boys?
I think there is definitely like a link between that for sure. I mean, I haven't really investigated that link for myself in a large sort of way. But I do know that with sexual abuse, there is linked to like your gut health issues, all kinds of things. So there was a lot of times that I was in hospital with unexplained illnesses that the doctors couldn't really figure out. And I think a vast majority of that was due to sexual abuse. And, you know, like I know there are a lot of people out there that have been through like far worse sexual abuse than what I did. And I know we're not meant to compare and all that sort of stuff, but there's levels of trauma. There's levels of the extent of certain things, but it does still affect you. And the body keeps a score, right? Like it knows. But I think for me, growing up, like I wasn't allowed to, like we used to have those dirty magazines in Woolworths and in the aisles, and my mum used to say, "Don't never go down that aisle," and I would be curious. So it was curiosity, but it wasn't a bad curiosity because I didn't know that it was bad at all. I was just told, "Don't go down that aisle because you know there's dirty magazines and all that sort of stuff." I'm like, "Well, why is that bad?" So one day I went down there and saw a couple of ladies on the front cover, and I was so scared to open up one of these magazines because they had those cameras,
Yeah.
and I thought that I was going to go to jail by looking at one of these magazines because it was so dirty and it was so wrong. And this is before I was like full on addicted, by the way, and before I was actually shown porn videos. So I think there was a little bit of an inclination that the addiction was coming. Like I had this fascination with naked women and the whole area of sex and everything. And what guy doesn't? Like we're
Mm.
sexual beings too. And now I look back at it, I'm like, well, if it was dirty and it was so wrong, why was it on full display in a shop for people to buy?
Mm.
Like, you know, but that was my young brain being so fearful, thinking that this was so wrong. And because it was so wrong, it made me more intrigued. So when a friend of mine that I was at school with offered to show me a porn video for the very first time, he goes, "Do you know what hardcore is?" I go, "No." He goes, "Hardcore porn." I'm like, show me a hardcore porn video." I got so excited. We're in the back of the classroom and he had something I didn't. He had a phone with internet access. His parents didn't monitor it. And if he did, if even if they did, he just delete the history. So no one really knew. And he showed me a hardcore porn video in the classroom. And I was instantly hook, line, and sinker, man. I was like, damn, I'm in. And that was the start of literally, I say, the worst addiction I've ever had in my life that led to my addiction to exercise, my addiction, my eating disorders, all these things. Because as Dr. Anna Lemke talks about, I was one of the very few people actually that uses one addiction to combat another addiction. But that one addiction, one outweighs the other, but they're still addictions. So, I mean, porn was an educational platform, and I didn't know that it was, and I didn't know that it was rewiring my neurological pathways in my brain to dictate what I thought, how I acted, how I felt towards women, how I looked at women, how I interacted with people. So you're talking about, you know, that social anxiety. I had a ton of social anxiety growing up too, because all I was thinking about was, oh, how do they look? You know, and my brain went to so many shameful places, man, that I don't want to admit about people that I knew. And I'm just like, why am I doing this? Why is my and it got to the point, man, where I was just utterly miserable because this addiction took over my life and nobody knew. I was living a lie, double life. And when you're living a double life, when you're not being authentically true to yourself, there is that disconnect. You feel that misery, that pain even more. So that addiction to pornography kept on creeping in and it just yeah, it almost destroyed my life. In fact, it landed me in hospital. I thought it was harmless. You know, it's not going to harm me at all. But like I said, it almost destroyed my life. It destroyed a bunch of my relationships, and it took me to some very, very dark places that I don't think that I will share. So it led to me trying to get rid of this addiction, but it was sort of like this very, very hard thing to do. When one addiction's in place, the result of trying to get rid of it, you try and quit cold turkey. So I did that. I displayed all the signs that a drug addict actually displays of withdrawal. I got antsy, I got annoyed, and you name it, like everything under the sun just happened. I tried to mask it with other things, and the one thing that I did mask with was the physical exertion of exercise. So I was trying to numb that that feeling of wanting to jerk off every time. I was trying to get rid of those hormones that were making me sexually active and wanting a woman, because during that whole time as well, I was still a virgin, so I didn't know what it was like to have sex with a woman. And I thought that I was it. I thought every woman on the face of the earth, every hot woman would want to sleep with me because I had the rocking six pack abs. I had everything. I had the body. I thought I had the looks, all of it. Didn't have the personality to match anything, but I had what I thought porn taught me to have was going to work. Didn't work. Got rejected so many times. And I'm so glad that I did, because it just showed me that I was an ass, big one. But yeah, the exercise addiction just took over my life, and eventually it landed me in hospital for 9 days. All my dignity, everything that I held dear to my heart, stripped away from me. Um, but one thing about addiction is it never goes away. Never. When they say, "Oh, you're fully recovered" and that sort of thing, no, you're gonna have triggers that come up. And porn is that one thing you will remember every single image. It's like that video at any moment, at any time, you can be triggered by anything, and you can be sitting on your bed one day, and you can have an image that has popped up from the very, very beginning, and you're like, "I thought I got rid of that," but no, it stays with you, and the more you watch it, the more it just grows and grows and grows, and until it explodes. And when it explodes, man, far out, it sucks.
Yeah, it's dangerous. I can relate because I've had a very similar situation when it comes to pornography and my addiction and how it how it shapes your mind, especially when you start from such a young age, how you look at women, how you treat women, how you
Yeah.
think sex should be, because the categories just get worse and worse and worse.
Oh,
Because you
yeah.
get bored of the original just normal sex. So this the level you get to can be very bad.
Yeah.
Um, but I wanted to ask, how do you feel that we educate people, young boys about this and getting them to understand the negative side effects of watching porn and being addicted to porn?
It's hard, man. Like I spoke with Joshua Broom, who was actually in the industry for 6 years. He was like one of the top performers in the industry, and he told me he's like thousand videos or something like that, which is a crazy, crazy number. But that guy is now he's now a Christian. He's now a pastor. He got away from it, and what he said to me was, the vast majority of people you're watching in that video, they're either on something or they've committed suicide. There is this crazy element surrounding the industry. It's all entertainment. It's all fake. Their life, you're probably watching someone whose life is depressed, whose life is absolutely miserable. You and if you're watching someone and you're getting off to that, man, that's horrible. I mean, not even me that has done some crazy, crazy stuff, knowing that that person could be depressed or they've committed suicide, they're no longer around anymore. That's heartbreaking, man. I can't watch it if that's the case. But also it's about I know it's hard as well because kids will be kids. They will do their own thing, and you can try and educate them as much as you possibly can. And unfortunately, society, because it is so attractive, right? It is so enticing. It is hard to educate kids the other way, but it's not going to stop me from trying to educate them and say, look, you are doing yourself more damage by watching this. So stop watching it. I know it's hard to stop watching it, but you can do it. And there are ways that you can do it. And quitting cold turkey is one of them. And you can build that resilience muscle in there. But yeah, man, I just say, honestly, we've just got to educate young people as best we possibly can the right way and say, you got to get away from it, man. It's not going to do you any favors. Seriously, a moment of pleasure is is not worth a lifetime of pain that you're self-inflicting. It's just it's heartbreaking, man. It's not going to be worth it.
Do you feel like building these kids' self-worth and confidence and purpose in life, I know they're still young, but building that up for them will help them to not have to rely or go to these addictions to feel pleasure and to feel good about themselves?
Well, for me, I went to it a lot of the times because I felt lonely. And for a lot of kids, if they go through like a breakup, if they go through something else, they feel like because of that, they're going to get some kind of satisfaction or comfort from watching porn. But what that's doing is afterwards you have that dirty feeling. You have that shameful feeling and you no longer feel comfortable anymore. That is because it's so backwards, man. It is honestly, but that's the problem. It also gets to their psychic, their brain. So I think in part of it, you're right. We got to make these kids feel like they're loved. We got to show them that this is not the answer. This is not the way, and we've got to give them tools and resources that are going to help them combat that addiction, combat those feelings. And as young men, we have that responsibility, and even young women these days, we have that responsibility to show up for the next generation because, like you said, it is getting worse. There are categories on there. And also, porn is teaching kids to be violent, it's teaching abuse. But no, no, no. Porn is okay. No, no, no. Porn's not harmful at all. But what you're seeing in the video, 90% or even above 90%, there are some form of physical violence. And vast majority of what you see in a video, you're not going to see in real life when you go and do it. It's completely different. So, and I think you would know this, man, like the addiction versus actually having it. It's a completely different scenario. And it literally flipped the switch for me. I was like, damn, what's going on? Because I had this bent up thought in my mind of what it was going to be like. And, it wasn't like that at all. Something completely different. So, if that answers your question, man, I think part of it is definitely making them feel loved and worth it. And the other part of it is educating them. And the other part of it is giving them the tools and strategies. So, I think it's like three parts all combining into one.
Yeah, I think it's so important because when I've done self-reflection on why I was addicted to pornography, like yes, we're males, we have testosterone, high hormones, stuff like that, but a reason that I was really addicted to it at a point in my life was I wasn't getting love from family members and from friends. So I felt that was the only way I could gain that. But I didn't know. And now looking back at it, I'm like, that is why. So it's really interesting once you get older and you have that self-reflection and look back in your life. It's really interesting to see that why you do certain things. And I wanted to ask you, we're talking about why and purpose and all that kind of stuff. Do you have any advice for someone that is looking to find their purpose?
I love this question. So I thought that my purpose growing up was to become a filmmaker. So I placed all of what I did, who I was, into film. That was it, nothing else. And when that didn't happen, I thought, what's going on here? What's happening? I felt miserable. I felt lost. I felt stuck. Once again, it all happened. And then in 2019, what I didn't mention was I was trying to get my film career off the ground again, but this time with a business partner, and it didn't work out the way I wanted it to. So I finally realized this important thing. And like I told you before, that purpose is like you being alive right now. My God given purpose is to be alive and to live this life the very best way I possibly can, whatever that is. And we need to start distinguishing between I am versus I do. You take who you are into what you do and not the other way around. Your character, your beliefs, your values, your opinions, whatever it is, you take all of that into what you do. Because a vast majority of people, they think and they believe that what they do dictates who they are. And that's not true at all. Because what are you without what you do in terms of job, in terms of career? Because a lot of people, they chase that job, they chase that career, and the moment they get it, they still feel miserable, they still feel stuck, and they continue doing it. They continue going on that hamster wheel over and over and over again, and they feel, why does it feel like I don't have a purpose? Why does it feel like I've still got nothing? Because they haven't realized that what's most important is them knowing that being alive right now is the most important, who they are. And like I said, their values, understanding their character, their integrity, their beliefs, all those things are the most important to knowing one's worth and knowing one's purpose in this life. Because like I've said a number of times, life is the most precious thing, most precious gift, and you've been given a gift. And that gift has purpose. Nothing in this world was created without a purpose, and that includes you. So you being alive right now, doesn't matter what you do in life. You should get a job because it's great to work, it's great to provide and do that sort of stuff. But you need to understand that you, just by being alive right now, understanding that can help you so much in taking who you are into what you do and serving that way. So service is part of who we are, and it's also something that we can do for people. But we take that who we are into what we do. Does that make sense, man?
Yeah, exactly. Like as a society, we wrap up our identity in external factors instead of focusing on the internal. And a big thing for me is anything external is the cherry on top. That's the bonus. That is awesome. But if we're not focusing internally and who we want to be, what we want to feel on a day-to-day basis, well, then you are going to be sad. Just like we mentioned, the person that gets the new house or the new car, they get it and they're like, oh yeah, cool, I feel good. And they're like, oh, I want a bigger house. I want a bigger car. You're
Oh,
always chasing the next big thing
yeah,
because you're not focusing on how you actually want to feel on a day-to-day basis. And that is a big thing that I focus on is internal fulfillment over external fulfillment.
yeah. I mean,
Makes society such a better place.
it's great to have all those things, man. Don't get me wrong, but I've spoken with billionaires and even millionaires, and some have said to me, Jay, what is great worth without a fulfilling purpose behind you? It's just great wealth. That's all it is. It's stuff. But when you have a fulfilling purpose behind you and you've got great wealth, now that's truly something, because then you can use that great wealth as another way to help fulfill your purpose. So stuff is a tool that we use. We give it meaning. We give it purpose for ourselves. We give it that purpose. We say, and it's so backwards, man. Like for whatever reason, as a society, we've said that getting this and that and whatever in your life is somehow going to make you happy and fulfilled. Somehow it's going to give you purpose. And we teach people, go to university, get a job, do X, Y, and Z. But are they happy? Are they fulfilled? Can they really say that? I mean, I can't speak for somebody else, but I know for me, I was chasing the world's version of what success is, and I felt miserable. The world's version of purpose, I felt lonely. I'm like, this sucks. But when I decided to flip it, and when I finally realized that who I was more important than what I did, and who I was is Jay Fantom, someone that is trying to be authentically the best authentic version of himself, someone that tries to be kind, tries to love as best he can. He has his stuff up, he has his failures, he has his moments of anger, and he has his down moments. But all in all, if he believes that he is worthy, he is enough because God said so and God made him so. And I know, once again, not a lot of people believe in God, and that's totally fine. But I want you to understand something. You're here for a reason. Nothing, it's not without coincidence, man. I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in a plan. I believe in God ordained plans. And you being here was not a mistake. You going through what you went through is not a mistake. You were given a gift. Use that gift the best way ever by saying, I am enough. My story matters. I have a purpose, being alive and to live this life in service to other people and being kind to yourself as well. And then getting to do whatever the world says you want to do. But at least you know who you are first and foremost.
Jay, I think that's a great point to, I guess, start to wrap up the podcast on. It's been an amazing conversation. I wanted to ask you, for the listeners, how can they support you? Where can they find you? I know you got your podcast, you have a book coming out. Yeah, how can people support you, man? Because you're doing amazing stuff.
Well, I wrote the book specifically to show people how to overcome and lead for their own life the best way possible. So if they want to do something for themselves, I mean, and if you want to support me, that's great, but support yourself first and foremost and get the book. I didn't write it either to be boring. I hate boring books. I wrote it to help you, whatever you're going through, no matter what stage of life you're at. There's a story in there, and I hope that that story is going to help you in some way, shape, or form to lead your life the best way possible. So yeah, go and do that. You can listen to some of the incredible guests I've had on the Storybox. If you can continue putting up with my voice, you can do that. Whatever you want to do, it's all there. The Storybox podcast and the book, The Path of an Eagle: How to Overcome and Lead After Being Knocked Down.
Awesome, brother. We have a new tradition on the podcast now where the previous guests ask the next guest a question. Now, you're the first guest of the relaunch, so this question is coming from me. What does it mean to live your inner truth?
I think showing up every single day, knowing that you've given your best, knowing that you've been excellent, knowing that you've lived, you've loved, you've been kind, you've made some kind of a difference in the world that you believe is worthwhile, and that you've shown others that, yeah, that God is real. He loves you. He died for you, and he's there for you if you need him. So that's what I think, man.
Awesome. Jay, thank you once again, brother. I really enjoyed this chat. And for the listeners, if you got some value out of today's episode, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Cheers.